bad questions. Let's talk about some bad questions. You really like this person. You want to marry him. Should I marry this person? Can I marry this person? Is that okay? I think I've said that before, like for things I wanted. Is it okay if I do this, Lord? And I think most of the time he's going to be like, well, yeah, it's okay. If that's the only thing you're asking me, then sure, but you didn't bother to ask me anything else. I have a better idea, but okay, go ahead. I don't think in most cases he would tell you, no, don't marry a good person, even if it's not maybe the best person for you. You know what I mean? Like if this is what you want, okay.
It's called free will.
Right.
He will offer suggestions. He will offer what would be best, but it's still up
But
to
you kind of have to
make that
ask.
decision.
You kind of, most of the time,
You have to ask.
you kind of have to ask. And I think most of us know when we're kind of off, but we want something really bad, so we don't want to ask. Here on the Overcome Depression podcast, we will always encourage you to use your powerful intuition so that you can sort through all the noise out there and more easily discover the path and solutions that God knows will work for you so that you can overcome depression and kiss that sucker goodbye forever and ever. That is my hope for you. Which brings us to the question: what questions do we need to be asking so that we can get those clear answers for ourselves? And that's not always super uber clear when you're struggling with depression. I know that it was pretty cloudy for me, and it took seeing that little bit of light through the clouds and starting to get those little answers and getting comfortable with that muscle of intuition and getting clearer and clearer answers to my questions, getting that practice, and maybe asking people I trusted, does this feel right to you? This is what I'm getting, who are more seasoned in their intuition, so to speak. I would encourage anyone listening to go back and listen to episode 8 if you haven't already. It's all about how your very unique way of receiving intuition can help you to get the answers that you need for this program and in your life in general. There are quite a few different ways of receiving intuition, and if you're not familiar with yours, number 8 can start to help you possibly identify and start moving forward in how you listen to God. So with that said, since I was struggling with depression, which was, I want to say 16, 17 years ago now, I've learned to ask much more specific questions than I was raised to ask. I feel like I was raised to be kind of vague in the questions that I asked, would request things regularly, but I didn't necessarily seek the kind of understanding about God and how the spiritual side of things works until I was farther on in my progress. And I started realizing that my perceptions of the world were quite flawed, and I would venture to say that if you're depressed or struggle with anxiety or any other mental disorder, you are so delusional because you believe in so many lies that there's quite a lot to dig through to see that light again. But learning how to ask the right questions is one of those steps. So with that said, John is with me here today. We're going to talk about how to phrase questions, what's maybe best not to ask, and better and worse ways of taking a question and getting the correct answer, because it can be very confusing.
Challenging.
Yeah. It can be challenging if you're not used to asking questions in a way that you can receive a clear answer. So generally speaking, I've learned to avoid why and how, because both of those kind of denote a lack of faith or lack of trust. And I don't want to foster that in me, even if I'm already like, I don't understand this, I'm confused, why? But vocalizing the power of the voice, if we understood the power behind our words, we would watch them. We would not be so casual about the things that we say, because they affect the physical world around us and spiritually, the things that are going on as well. But asking, how will this work? How will this happen? How will I get through this? It's pointless because there is a way. And I've rarely been given the how. It's, do this, Jennifer. Huh? Do this. I don't know how that's going to work. But as I move forward, the how becomes more apparent, because God had a plan that I can't foresee. The why, again, why me? Why should I do this? Again, just kind of fruitless and pointless to ask why. I ask why all the time out of curiosity, but if you're stalling or being kind of cynical, it's counterproductive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's always a starting point, but one of the things I always teach my students, one of the phrases I do not want to hear from them is, I don't know. because you want me to help you solve something, looking at me and saying, I don't know, I don't get it. That literally tells me nothing. All it tells me is you don't understand the problem. And I tell them, you have to word your question differently.
Well, it's not even a question. It's a
Right.
it's a barrier.
You look at the problem, you point out and say, I don't understand this step, and point to it. I don't understand why you're substituting this here. That's the type of questions I ask my students to ask, because if you are specific like that, then I have a better understanding of where you need help, and then I can actually help you and guide you accordingly. But if you just throw up a general question like, why? Of course, one of the best ones. Why do we have to learn this math? We're never going to use it. Why? It's the most common question I get as a teacher. So I am with Jennifer when I say no to the whys.
As an Aquarius, I want to know the why behind everything. But again, it's kind of the energy behind that why. Is it curiosity? Is it excitement for learning and seeing what comes? Or is it that cynicism of, why? So if you're struggling with how to ask questions, I would, for now, just get rid of the hows and the whys when you're talking to God, and see if you can just use the who, what, when. Because those tend to be a lot more directive and specific. For some people listening, this might seem a little far-fetched, but let's start with who and some examples of what that might sound like. Who am I right now? Because if you're empathic or you have certain characteristics about the way that you operate, it's very easy for some people to absorb the energy of other people regularly or, on a very consistent basis, and to be acting out as someone else. So the anger that you might be feeling, yes, someone might have irritated you, but the volume with which it's exploding, is that really yours, or is it somebody else who struggles with anger that you've been around? Or if you are feeling really unmotivated and you just don't want to do anything, is that you're unmotivated? Or are you feeling the unmotivation from someone else? And in a family unit where you're around each other quite a bit, you can practice and identify, especially with a spouse or children or siblings, how you might be feeling or absorbing or responding to the energy of other people. And you can quite literally learn how to identify and filter through those things and choose what you're going to take and what you're going to leave behind, so that you're not constantly in the mercy of everybody else's emotions, feelings, and actions, and carrying things that do not belong to you. It's not always easy to do. It can be kind of a fun game, like whose is this? Who am I at this moment? It can also help you get to know the people you care about better and empathize with them and be like, wow, this intensity that I'm feeling, they feel that all the time. Wow, that's hard, but I don't have to take that on. That's not my purpose, to take on everybody else's stuff. So give it to the Lord, or ask the Lord to take it so that you can start to feel you again. If that makes sense. I know that might be a little deep for some people, but I found that that can be very helpful in working through even, like, I'm talking diseases, sickness, like for real. There's been times when I have felt other people. One time for months, I could not figure out what was going on with my body. And I thought, should I go to a doctor? Am I in trouble? And the Lord said, nope, this isn't you. This is energy. Oh my gosh, whose energy is it? And it wasn't clear at first. It took me 3 months to figure out who it was. Once I did, I prayed for them. I prayed for that to be lifted from me as well, and the symptoms stopped. So sometimes symptoms of sickness and disease or depression aren't even yours. It's kind of crazy how this works, but some of us were designed to have this life experience where we can learn a lot about how so many other people operate. And that can be a lot. And I think that's why a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression, because they're feeling all of this energy and they don't know what to do with it or how to handle it or how to process it when it's not even theirs to begin with. And then getting past all that and then be like, okay, now I get to deal with mine. They haven't even been able to deal with theirs because they're dealing with everybody else's.
I was going to piggyback on that when you said sometimes people find this difficult. One of the ways that I found how to deal with things is to understand it from a logical perspective. And I know when people fall into depression or anger, it's usually those emotions that you sense, especially when you talk about being empathic. If you are suffering like that, do not be afraid to consult your logical mind. It's
Mm-hmm.
there. We are a composite. We have emotion, but we also have logic, reason. And a lot of times when you fall into these negative effects, it's because the negative emotions are in control, which is why in those cases you have to learn how to trust the logic inside of you, the reason inside of you, which can help you separate the emotions. And it is a awesome skill to have, but you need both.
You do. Yeah.
I know one of my early mistakes, whenever issues were happening to me, is I literally became two people. I developed a way to separate my emotions from my logic. Either I was a very emotional person, typically feelings of rage, anger,
Mm-hmm.
or I could be very logic, which was cold, unfeeling,
I would call that
distant,
fractioned or
very fractioned, and it
fractured,
wasn't it,
disconnected. And you almost
right.
have to bring those two together.
That's exactly what happened. One event occurred that I could not process. That was when my fiance was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
I got hit with such a surge, my brain couldn't handle it anymore, and both sides literally fell apart at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And when I came out of all of this, there was no longer the two separate pieces. They had merged back to the way it was originally intended. I was no longer the two mindsets. I was just a single mindset after
Well, and
that
that's
point.
so true. I feel like with what I was dealing with, it took breaking my heart into a million pieces because a broken heart is really the only thing God has to work with. And sometimes we're just so hard that until that gets broken and we give Him the opportunity to put us back together, more whole than we were before and more perfected. Sometimes it takes things like that, which it did for me. It took really massive heartbreak to get that humility, that softness to even be possible for me. And I think a lot of people are so hurt, so guarded, that it takes things like that to break open and soften so that He can have an effect in our lives again and we can feel. I know that I started understanding the way rage worked because that was a real huge Achilles heel for me. When I would be losing my mind in a rage, because there was a kind of this point of no return where something else took over and I was no longer in control. And I started seeing my spirit way up here, looking down at myself and going, no, 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 oh, please, not again. Oh, I can't watch. And because the moment was so intense and traumatic, and this happened to me in trauma too, that there was this split that would occur, and I'd be up here, couldn't handle it, too hard, too much emotion, watching this thing play out, and then it was hard to reconnect again, almost like I wasn't grounded in my own body. So I started visualizing these events from my past, or even if something had happened 5 minutes ago, I would envision myself bringing that spirit back, summoning it, like in the name of Jesus Christ, please re-enter, connect to my body 100%. And then feel my feet on the ground, just boom, like get that spirit all the way through and asking for that connection again. Because again, that rage would just create this split in me that when I started recognizing that I had that, okay, I need to bring this back. And as I started doing that visualization, it got more and more easy to not have a split, to recognize what was happening when I was angry instead of saying, oh, I'll never do that again.
When that happened, what question did you ask yourself? How did you start questioning?
Yeah, good question.
What event happened? Or
what do I do to remedy this? What's the step, Lord? Then I felt like, ask it to come back. I saw the wrong that was occurring. And instead of going, why is that happening? Like I kind of had this understanding of why. And why do you let this happen, Lord? It's horrible.
yeah, why, God? Why do you want... And that's part of looking at the bigger picture. I was telling Jennifer of an incident that happened a few weeks back with me. What happened to cause me to get angry? Was it justified? Was it unjustified? Was the problem within me? I start questioning. That's one of my two-edged swords. I always question. I instinctively question all the time. I'm always thinking. I never stop, except when I go in the empty room. That's how I relax sometimes, just an empty room. But if I'm not there, I'm questioning myself. I'm questioning God, and that's just the way I process information. When I first started learning, I kept asking God, why? Over and over again. It's like, why is this happening, God? Why do you allow this to occur? Why? Instead of asking for the answer. I was just throwing the question out.
And even a better question, I think, would be, rather than what can I do, which is important, but what can you do? What do I need to ask of you? Or what information can you give to me right now that will help me through this?
Who do I need to talk to?
What doctor do I need to see? Will you guide me to the right person? Whenever I'm feeling sick or like something I can't solve, I will pray. Like, who is it? I don't just go to my regular doctor. I don't even have one. I have a handful of people in my circle, and I'll say who. Or is there someone completely different that I have never met before? Do I need to go to Google today? And literally, I'll let him guide me to my healer for that particular problem.
And one of the things, too, that you have to realize, which is you have to be willing to accept the answer you're given, even if you don't necessarily agree with it.
Now, I think that is the number one reason people don't want to ask questions. It's fear of the answer. Am I going to get the answer I want? Is it going to be hard? And almost like not wanting to know, because then if you know, then you're held accountable for going through or not. But I think we're held more accountable for what we don't ask, to be frank. If we're too scared to ask anything. I went through a period of about a year or two where I stopped asking questions because I was so gun shy. I'd felt like I had been tricked. I wasn't sure by who. If it was Satan who tricked me and I was just a really bad intuitive, or if God had betrayed me somehow because I just could not make sense of my husband leaving me. I couldn't understand because I'd felt so strongly about marrying him. But then what I learned later is that I had to learn something very important. And that is that I got an answer of yes. This is your person. You're on the right track, right path. But then I assumed that that was a forever answer. This is it. He's my husband. And when I felt something shift, something was off, something was amiss, something was wrong, I thought, no, that's just Satan trying to scare me. I need to go through with this. Even though there was something in me that said very strongly, he will not fight for you. It's very clear. He will not fight for you. When things get hard, you're going to be the one fighting. He won't. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. It was not fine. I went through with it. I should have asked again. When things change and you feel that something is amiss, ask again, because sometimes the choices of others, agency, things change. And what was right a year ago may not be right now. And that was the case with my first marriage, too. I felt so strongly that I was supposed to marry him, and I think I was. 10 years down the road, things had changed. I needed to separate, even though I thought, no, I married this guy in the temple. I'm supposed to stay with him forever. That's the plan, right? I can't leave. And it took a lot of beating to get to the point where, oh gosh, you're trying to tell me I should leave? Holy cow, why would you tell me that? There's that why again. Why would you tell me to leave? I don't understand. But yeah, it's sometimes the answers are hard to understand, but trusting that peace, the P-E-A-C-E, the peace that accompanies when you've got it. You've got it. You'll get that feeling of,
And part of that is learning how to trust God.
I had to learn to trust again.
And he gives you an answer that you might not necessarily understand or agree with, but then if you go with it, if you drop your own will and you accept his will and say, all right, God, I don't get it. I don't understand the answer you've given me, but I am going to trust you. I'll do what you said. Let's go for it. And I've noticed every time that I've done that, things work out. And it always works out in a way I never expected. And it always ends up being better than anything I myself could have imagined at the time.
Sometimes it's a connection, like just someone down that path you had to meet, and this was the only way you were going to do it. For me, that was the case when I moved down to Safford, Arizona. I did not want to go. And I was told prior by God, this is going to be hard. And I was like, why am I going? And like literally, this is going to be a miserable experience. And I'm like, what? But you're telling me to go? And I went. I followed my husband to Safford. That's where he wanted to continue his business. And boy, was it ever miserable hard. That was when we ended up in an RV, a lot of family drama. The whole economy fell out from the bottom. We were thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt from business and school loans that we could not pay back. Thought about declaring bankruptcy. Didn't do it. We negotiated the debt. But I met some people down there who absolutely changed my life. And had I not gone, my life would not be the same. And there's things I learned about myself, about my husband, the things that I did that taught me what Jennifer's made of, what a person can do. And I'm really grateful for that experience. Would I want to do it again? No. But even if I did have to experience something similar, I think I'd be more well equipped to have the faith that I'm getting through this. I got through it before.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom is best learned through experience. But then again, that's a whole nother topic.
Well, and something else, a really bad question. Let's talk about some bad questions. You really like this person. You want to marry him. Should I marry this person? Can I marry this person? Is that okay? I think I've said that before, like for things I wanted. Is it okay if I do this, Lord? And I think most of the time he's going to be like, well, yeah, it's okay. If that's the only thing you're asking me, then sure, but you didn't bother to ask me anything else. I have a better idea, but okay, go ahead. I don't think in most cases he would tell you, no, don't marry a good person, even if it's not maybe the best person for you. You know what I mean? Like if this is what you want, okay.
It's called free will.
Right.
He will offer suggestions. He will offer what would be best, but it's still up to you
have to
make that decision.
You kind of, most of the time,
you have to ask.
You kind of have to ask. And I think most of us know when we're kind of off, but we want something really bad, so we don't want to ask. I know I felt that.
Was actually,
yeah,
and that was actually given to a saint. They were actually talking to the Virgin Mary, Jesus' mom, in a locution. And they said, why can't you just send the angels down to help us? Why do we always have to keep asking? Mary told them that is one of the rules God put in place. He'll help, he'll always be there, but you have to ask. So asking for help is one of those rules. If you do not ask for help, he's just going to let you do your own thing.
That's why that pride cycle of being humbled through adversity, and then when is it that people pray the hardest? When life gets hard. Help me. And then they're asking for that clarity and questions and answers, right? But when life is good, why tap in? I'm fine. And I think we all fall into that. I know I do.
Yes.
It's an easy thing to do, but I love that. I love that perspective because I have believed that, but I didn't know a saint experienced that. So that's really cool.
As far as bad questions go, I would think in a nutshell, a good question should always be asked in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm.
A bad question is when it's in a negative manner. And what I mean by that is if you're having an argument with somebody and they could be getting on your nerves and you could be getting a little bit upset with them, instead of going, who is this idiot?
Yeah.
Why do they think they know more than I do? Instead of saying that, you say, okay, where are we different? How is this affecting the conversation I'm having? Who benefits? Is it more beneficial for me to continue with this conversation? Or should I distance myself for both of our sakes?
And where's the common ground? If you can find that common ground, you can get a person to connect and you stop fighting so much. You can kind of agree to disagree. Most of us want the same things. We just have a different way of going about getting what those things are, or we have a different idea of what that looks like.
You can't make a judgment off of what's happening right now, the present. You can observe it, but you can't see everything. Case in point, when I was in college, I was part of a prayer group, and there was an individual who had joined. They were not very religious. They were searching, and a lot of the things that they said were wrong. I mean, I'll just say it that way. And I, along with a few others, took the time to talk to them We accepted them where they were at. We talked to them. We answered the questions as best as we could. After that one term, they vanished. People come and go, and I didn't think anything of it. 2 years later, I saw them walking. I walked over, and it turns out in the 2 years since, they had become a Christian. They were praying, telling me all about everything that happened to them after that moment. And that was because, as they said, they weren't afraid to question their own beliefs and question themselves, and they weren't afraid to listen to what other people had to say and took that for what it was worth. I always remember that because, again, oftentimes we plant seeds, but we never see what plant grows.
Those ripples.
From the seeds that are planted, the ripples. Every so often, an event like that will happen in my life, and I'm just blown away. I'm just like, wow, that's what happened. God had me plant that seed years ago, and now I'm seeing the after effect. I'm like, it goes back to the story of the mustard seed. For those of you that don't know, you can research that one. And it always starts with a question. We're always questioning. Not everybody gets the infused knowledge, like we talked about last podcast. God wants you to question. On the same token, he wants you to ask the right question, the correct question.
So when you were talking, I saw mustard seed and tree. A lot of trees, a lot of beautiful trees, they'll have maybe a few branches or spots that maybe got a little diseased or died off, and those kind of need to be pruned off or taken away. And I think even as Christians, we need to be questioning the interpretation of our faith. Not in a cynical way. Again, asking the right questions. Am I understanding this fully and correctly? And even, this is a good one. To what extent do I understand this, the truth, nothing but the truth, the whole truth, 100%? And then ask for a percentage and see what comes to you. 60%? Arrogance. I think as Christians, we can be very arrogant of this is how it is. This is what the truth is. And being very firm and boxy about it, when God can teach us so much more and we can learn so much from each other. I think all of the different faiths have some things right that maybe the others lost a little bit. And if you start to put all the pieces together and cut off the parts of your belief system that maybe aren't like they're close, but it's that dead branch that just needs to be cut off so that you can have that fullness. Because the perception is a lot of it too. You could be taught the right truth, but perceive it incorrectly. And so it's just questioning, even as a Christian, your Christian beliefs, but in a faith-centered manner of, I want to understand more. Is there any part of what I'm believing that isn't quite accurate? And can you give me more understanding of the truth as it is?
That's a good way to look at things, because the moment you think you know everything, that's the moment you fall.
Some of the people I know who've read the Bible front and back, smart people, were the ones who had the least faith, ironically. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, they read it as an intellectual, but they didn't.
You need to constantly learn. And the way that God explained it to me, the whole reason we're here on earth is to learn how to love God. That's the reason. That's as simple as that. Don't stop. The more I learn, the more God reveals I don't know.
Right.
And it's a constant, and it's almost like a hunger. I will tell you, I'm always hungry for more information. I'm always hungry for more stories. And the more I seek, the more I find, and the more I realize I need to go more. I need to go deeper and deeper. And that's the nature of God, and that's what he presents for us. And that's the way you live your life. You should never be satisfied with understanding what you know. That doesn't mean that you cannot master something. Like if you could master an instrument, but don't be afraid to try things that you might not be good at, that you just want to try. And a good example of that is every year I try a different craft for Christmas. I make Christmas presents. I made ornaments. Another year I made candles. Another year I did painting. Do I say that I'm the best in the world?
Yeah, but we've talked about that before. That's one of the earmarks of joy. is trying
It's
new
fun.
things, challenging yourself, doing those creative ventures and the challenges, doing things that will greatly challenge your ego, I suppose, and break through some boundaries. That's where joy comes from, and delayed gratification. So if you're not great at something right at the beginning, but I wanted to back up just a little bit. You talked about information, the information age. We've got it at our fingertips. We can ask Google
Oh,
anything
yeah.
we want. Well, sorry, it's more like Chat GPT these days. It can like determine how we talk and talk back to us, make us feel all comfortable. Like, this is my Chat GPT is my bud. My son was saying that the other day. I'm like, don't you ever forget that is not your friend. Ever.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. And the media, okay, and the emotional appeal that they cater to because it boosts ratings. I mean, we know this. And yet so many people fall for the assumptions of this is what happened, but they show only what they want to show, right? You don't see the whole thing. And even if you were there, you only get to see from one angle. You're not God. You didn't get to see every little piece that led up to this moment, right? And yet we make these impulse judgments about situations, about wars, about who was at fault. And then these riots occur. And you see all of the explosion on social media and all these people getting angry. And it's like, just take a second and start asking God some questions about what you just saw. Is this what happened? Is there any AI involved? Because that's something that can happen now. Am I seeing the big picture? Is what they're saying true? Is he or she at fault? When I'll feel this kind of, this isn't it. Like there's something amiss here. There's an agenda at play. I don't know what it is. And I just sit and I wait. And I start asking questions. And I wait for the intuition to start coming, but sometimes it takes some time as different things come out and different information and feelings I have with the Ukraine war, for example. I asked the Lord, is Putin doing the wrong thing for the right reason? I got a no. And I thought, surely he's doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason. And I got a no. That surprised me. Really? Okay. Did he do the right thing for the wrong reason? And I got a very solid yes. That gave me the foundation to look through that filter of right thing for the wrong reason, and it helped me identify what was lies and what was more on the realm of truth, because it's really hard with any of those things. There's people making money on war. There's so many things at play. But I'm like, I really was having a hard time with the narrative because I'm like, Putin isn't that stupid. Like, I know he's not a saint, but I know he's not that stupid to just invade Ukraine because he's mad, you know?
Yeah.
He's smarter than that. So just asking questions about what you see, the world around you, the media that you watch. Just take a minute and tame your emotions. Yeah, it can be infuriating, like the wrong, the injustice. But then you have to sit back and say, are they playing on my emotions? Is there more to this story than meets the eye?
Exactly. And that goes into testing the answers that you're given. I know, especially like with the Chat GPT, I believe it was Rolling Stones released an article and said that Chat GPT is breaking up more marriages than any other AI program at the moment.
Why?
Because people.
Oh, shoot, I'm asking why.
Well,
That's a good why
apparently
question.
ChatGPT is designed to give a positive answer to the person that's asking the questions.
The perfect answer. And to do it in the way that they'll receive it best, that because it can perceive your personality. Yeah.
So people are getting misled thinking that ChatGPT is giving them all
good
the
marital
answers.
Advice or
I've seen this in school because especially last year and the year before that, more and more students are using ChatGPT or other AI programs to do their reports, to do their assignments. They think that we can't tell. And I tell them, I'm like, I know you. I know the way that you talk, and I know that you cannot have written this because it doesn't make sense. You have to be very careful, very careful.
I use it to do my podcast summaries under the videos and do some keyword searching. It's nice. I like that AI can pick up what we're saying in these podcasts and do a transcript for me. But I will say, when I'm writing my newsletters, it's authentic. It's 100% me. I do not use AI to write my newsletters or my content that I post on Threads, Instagram. we're losing human authenticity and connection because we're relying too much on perfection and a computer to do it for us. And part of the beauty of art is that it was done by a imperfect hand. And there's even Native American tribes that will purposefully put imperfections in their work because they believe that it releases a spirit of some kind in the artwork. You know, it's kind of cool. But there's people that have virtual girlfriends now. Scary. And it makes them feel really good. If you've seen Blade Runner, which when I watched that, I didn't know it was R, but it demonstrates that. Yeah.
It's a perfect example of where we're headed. And that is the slippery slope. It's kind of sad. I always say, like, my generation and maybe my immediate nephews that follow me, because there's only about 10 years difference. I was there when the technology came in. I know what it was like growing up without all that technology. The generations now have always had it.
Yeah.
They instinctively trust the technology, sometimes even more than themselves. And a case in point, this past year, I had a student that turned in their homework and the answer was wrong. It's like, no, it's not. It's correct. Well, it turns out they let ChatGPT do their homework for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, ChatGPT did it, the computer did it, therefore it's right. And then I sat down and showed them how the computer made a mistake. And they were beside themselves. They didn't know what to say. They're like, computers don't make mistakes. And I'm like, that's the first thing you have to learn.
Who's putting I find grammatical errors in ChatGPT, well, in things that are written by AI quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a conundrum. I'm glad I didn't grow up the time my children are growing up. I haven't really given them access to that, but they have access to it now. And I wonder how they're going to handle it, for sure.
Well, the thing that I learned early on, even when it comes to the topic today, asking questions, there's nothing inherently good or bad. It's all in how it is used. Technology is that way. Technology is technology. God has allowed technology to be created. He has allowed us to use it. Now, how we use it is up to us. Do we use it for good or bad?
It brings us back to questions of how much would you like me to use ChatGPT, Lord? Would this be a good idea to use ChatGPT for this? Or should I do it myself? And even, what should I do first today? Can you help me make a list, prioritize the things that I do today? And I think we need to be more human.
We do.
But also more connected to source rather than connected to technology. AI is dependent on...
Who's programming it? You don't know.
Who's programming it? Yeah, it's really dependent on who's programming it and the questions that people are plugging in or responding to. It's responding to all of these different factors. If you ask it political questions... and you turn the question around, it'll give you really biased results. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, depending on how you ask the question. J.P. Sears did one on this. He said, I'm really proud to be white. And it said, well, that's really good to be proud of your heritage, but you need to make sure that you're being conscious of other groups of people, giving them the same treatment, and you're not better than anybody else. Like something along those lines. And then he said, I'm proud to be black. And it said, I'm so proud of you for being so proud of your heritage. And it was just so different. You know, it was just interesting, you know. And it's like training people. So if there's people behind the scenes who have ulterior motives, it's going to push an entire population in a certain direction. And I've even seen this with the way social media worked in recent years, where it will reward certain behavior from content creators. And so content creators are tempted to move in a certain direction or say certain things or not say other things. Like, I can't tell you how many people have got censored about much of the stuff we talk about on this show. And so they stopped because they're like, but I'm not getting as many views and I want to get people to listen to it. And so they stop being truthful or authentic because they're censoring themselves, which is interesting how it's not even coming from a government per se, but it's coming from the algorithm and the society itself, where we're punishing each other for certain behaviors, and then people are responding in order to be popular or to fuel their income or business. It's just interesting if you just think about how that's influencing society at large and pushing you in a certain direction. So authenticity, questioning, why am I doing this? And that's not a bad why question. Or rather, let's rephrase that, okay? Because I'm still learning this too. I'm evolving. Am I doing this for the right reasons?
Better.
That is a much better question. And then you'll get a more clear answer, right? Am I doing this because I want to be popular? So asking hard questions. No, I'm not doing it. Am I doing it to be popular? Oh, I am? Dang it. Okay. So just being honest when you're like in denial. No, I'm not. Oh, I am.
And I really believe at the heart of it all is understanding how to think for yourself. I know whenever you're depressed or angry or suffering like that, a lot of times you hear what other people say and you take it to heart, even to the point where you start believing it yourself and telling those things to yourself, wherein you need to get into the habit of asking questions. How is this affecting me?
Yeah.
How is this beneficial to me?
Or take a how and make that a better question. Is this a good media for me to watch? Do you want me to stop watching it?
Is there something that I can learn from listening to this or watching this? Is it beneficial to me?
And that's kind of all that matters. Yes or no? So again, getting away from the how and the why. Again, it's not easy to do. I get more specific and to the point.
Exactly. It's a learning process, and the process never ends. You're going to be learning your entire life. Try and learn from people who are older than you because they've experienced or done things that you have not done, and therefore they have a more unique view. If you're older, listen to the youngsters because they have a more innocent view of topics. They have a more pure view, and they can get you to question yourself in other ways.
Parents. Parents. Listen to your children. They have wisdom you don't always have. Just because you're the parent doesn't mean that they know nothing or that they should just do everything you say without question, because sometimes they're inspired and you need to listen to them.
One of my friends, him and the eldest, personality-wise, are very much alike. But my friend was shocked when they started questioning their views. And he never expected that. He's like, I thought they were just going to walk lockstep with me, take what I had to say, take it to heart.
They're a different person.
They're different. They're different. They have different gifts. They have different abilities.
A different path.
A different path, yeah. And you have to understand that and be accepting of that.
And encourage them to ask questions that they might get answers to that aren't in alignment with what you want. And to be courageous enough to give them that agency, connect to God themselves and get their own answers and not just listen to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way God was. He gave us a free will for a reason. He doesn't want robots. He doesn't want people that will blindly listen to him or blindly do what he tells you to do because you feel it's a duty or something. He wants people to love him of their own free will. He wants us to do things because we accept it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a person forced against their will be of the same opinion still. Remember that, parents.
Oh, that is a good quote. I like that one. Very true. I'll even engage a little bit more at a higher level thinking on all of this. One of the best lessons I ever learned was when I first started college. My professor, he was old. I mean, he was in his 70s, served in World War II as an engineer, and he was teaching at the college, and the college wanted him to retire because they said, well, his views are outdated and whatnot. And this one example I have remembered my entire life. He came into the classroom. We're all sitting there. He looked at us. He picked up a textbook and he said, this is the textbook the college told you to buy for this class. Does everybody have this textbook? And being obedient little freshmen in college, we're like, yeah, okay, yeah. We all had our textbooks. We held it up. We got them. Yes, we're ready. He's like, good. Then he walked over, opened up the window, and he threw the textbook out. And we were just like looking at him like, anybody can read anything. On this bookshelf, there's 20-some books on theory. He pointed to them. I said, theory, problems, how to do equations, like, all of this. And he looked and he says, anybody can do that. Anybody can read. Anybody can duplicate what someone else has done. What you're going to learn What I am going to teach you is how to think for yourselves.
How many of us are just fed all day long by the phone, the media, by entertainment, music, and we don't even give ourselves time or space to think so we can even ask the questions? That the Lord is so eager for us to just chill for 5 minutes and just connect with me for a minute so I can guide you. I love that. You told that story before, but I think it's a good one to tell again. We forgot to talk about timing because I think who, what, and when are the good ones to ask. Timing is really important. So a lot of times in the past, I'm quite intuitive. I'd get these inspirations of what I needed to do, and then I would just go forward and I was going to do it. And I had to learn from experience that the next question you're not asking, Jennifer, is when. It's not ready, set, go. It's here's the inspiration. Now just sit and wait for the right time to implement it. I will tell you when the light turns green. And that has made my life so much better. The podcast was like that. I have been knowing that I was going to do some kind of presenting in some form of the information that I have started presenting in this podcast for, I want to say 10 years. But I never quite felt I had the right delivery or the right timing. And then I had a moment where it was just this bing, call this person, it's time, go. And I'm going, really? Now? Yep. Podcast time, go. And I'm like, okay, this will be interesting. And I started moving forward, and here we are. Had I tried to do this 10 years ago, I think it probably would have been really frustrating, would have gotten to a point where I'm just like, I give up, this is crazy. And God would have said, yeah, stop, because it wasn't the right time. I don't always get that right because I'm very eager, but timing can be everything. Again, for marriage, like right person, right time, right place, right? Who, what, when, and so many other things as well. So keeping that in mind, especially if you're a generator or manifesting generator in human design, that's pivotively important. If you're a manifester, and I've told my son this, who is one, you get an idea, you can just run with it and it'll probably go great. Like the timing is usually now with manifestors. I am not that. So I usually have to wait until I get that, go and feel it in your soul. It's just like, yeah, now.
And you have to learn how to recognize that.
Even when to sell your house. Should I put it on the market this week or should I wait a few months? It could be something as simple as that.
Yeah, it can be very difficult for people to be patient. If you look at our society, we live in the now society. We get everything and we have instant gratification. I want to listen to music. I turn on YouTube. Boom, instant gratification.
You don't even have to go get the record anymore and put it on.
Right. And we have to learn how to pace ourselves in God's time. In all honesty, if you want to look at the Bible and some of the stories, especially of the Old Testament, and how long people were willing to wait until it was the right time. They just kept asking that question, when? And then whenever it happens, it happens. It happens fast.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy how fast it happens when you get that go. And everything, for the most part, falls right into place. It's so much easier if you wait for the right time. Instead of getting the inspiration, going through with it and going, why didn't it turn out the way I thought it would? You told me to do this. And there we go with the why again, right?
The other thing you have to do is be willing to ask yourself that question. Here's a good one. When are you going to make a change?
Today? Next week? When am I going to be ready? Yeah.
What's the schedule like?
Or what is holding me back? Because that can be elusive. Sometimes you think it's one thing, but it's not. And what is blocking me? Can you help me identify what it is so that I can move forward and then give it to the Lord? Here, please take this thing that you've helped me identify so I can give it up now.
Right. And you have to also realize that you might not get a direct message from God.
It might be from another person.
Because God acts through other people.
I did get the first premonition, inspiration from the television set, as you learned from my story. I never watched TV, and then the TV was on, and there was my answer.
God can use everything, and He does. Sometimes things will happen in a way that's just, you don't understand. It's like, how did God do that? That's wild.
He'll talk to us any way He can get our attention.
Yeah.
There was a woman who told a story about there was a party at her house and they all got out of the car. Most of the time the kids would get the baby out of the car seat and bring her in. Nobody did. And she didn't realize they'd left her baby in the car. And as they were having this party, she had the thought that, I wonder if I left the chips. Did I leave the chips in the car? And then it hit her. But the spirit didn't say, your baby's in the car. Like, she wasn't hearing it. It was,
Right.
Met those chips. They might be in the car. And because that was what she was focused on at the moment. And then it hit her.
And
Oh my gosh. And it turned out to be okay. Horrific. Oh my gosh. Like one of my biggest nightmares. But he'll talk to us in ways that will get the hint and go in the direction sometimes when we're not really listening, when we're focused on something else.
again, just ask those questions. That's what it all boils down to. When is this a good time for you, my Lord?
What am I missing? Who do I need? Who is around me right now, if you're talking about spiritual sense?
When do I need them?
Do I need to have this conversation right now versus wait an hour? Sometimes that's a good one too. Like, is this the right time to have this conversation? So,
Oh, yeah, people don't have to calm down or anything. Yeah.
or even maybe it seems like a great time, but something into you like, no, they're not going to respond well today. I've got to wait. Anyway, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, John, for meeting me this Saturday morning. And I'm actually meeting someone for a 20-minute natal chart. Anybody who signs up for the newsletter can sign up for a free 20-minute consultation. Totally free. I would encourage you to do that. My newsletters are pretty awesome. It'll take you 5 minutes to read. If you don't want to spend the hour a week watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, 5 minutes of some tidbits you might have not known, things that might challenge your current belief system in ways that might even make you mad. Like, stick it out. I remember challenging those beliefs myself, and I'm not saying you have to believe anything I say. Just consider it. Take it to the Lord and ask questions. Thank you again for being here this morning. I am Jennifer Sterling Campbell.
I am John.
We'll see you next time. If you are new to this podcast, please go watch all of the hashtag introduction videos first, and then consider downloading the Overcome Depression workbook. Links in the description. The content in this podcast is based on my own personal beliefs, is for informational purposes only, and is not intended to substitute for medical advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Please refer to the full legal disclaimer in the description.